All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. You can follow me on Twitter, Chad Hasty Radio, 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. You can text into the program at 806-680-2790. North Korea lately has been knocked off the front page, but it's still a threat in the world, and it's still something that the Trump administration is looking at. There was an interview just a few days ago with Steve Bannon, one of the chief strategists with Donald Trump, and he said, it's over. They got us. There's nothing that we can do. My next guest wrote a piece earlier in the week detailing how many people could lose their lives and what a nuclear war could look like if the U.S. and North Korea went to war. And my next guest, the Director of Defense Studies at the Center for National Interest, my next guest, Harry Kazianis, is on the phones with us. Harry, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining the show today. I appreciate you taking some time to talk about North Korea and China, two places that you know quite a bit about.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's. I want to start off with this the Bannon article, and then there's been some, I guess, some other Trump administration officials who have refuted what Steve Bannon had said. Bannon had said they got us. There's nothing the U.S. can do when it comes to North Korea as far as the military goes. Do you agree with that, or is there something the U.S. can do that won't cost 10 million lives?
Well, when it comes to the Trump administration, sometimes they might not always have sort of flow things out the way I think the general public needs to understand them, but there's some kernels of truth in what Steve Bannon said. The challenge is with North Korea is what we're dealing with today is we're kind of at a Sputnik moment. If you go back 60 years ago to 1957, the United States woke up to the Soviet Union firing these massive rockets into the atmosphere, and they put a satellite in orbit, and it freaked everybody out because that meant more than likely the Russians could hit the U.S. with a nuclear weapon. That's basically where we are today with North Korea. I think that's what Steve Bannon's basically alerting us to, is the fact that if we wanted to basically try to rid North Korea of these nuclear weapons, and you were sort of pointing out the piece I wrote for Fox News, it would literally cost millions of people to rid North Korea of those weapons. Keep in mind that the recent assessment that came out from the Washington Post is that North Korea might have as many as 60 nuclear weapons. So you'd have to amass a lot of firepower in Asia to get those weapons out of there and basically start a massive war. But if we miss one or two of those nuclear weapons, Kim Jong-un is going to launch those at South Korea or Japan, and we're going to have a crisis that makes everything happening right now look like child's play.
Talk about the article you wrote for Fox News a little bit because I thought it was fascinating. I think you put it best case scenario, 1 million people would lose their lives, and you were able to map this out. You took part in some war games, correct?
Yeah, this was actually a few years ago. We did these back in 2013 when the last North Korea crisis was sort of ending. And basically we sketched out three scenarios. Basically nuclear war light, number one, if you will, where basically U.S. forces are going into North Korea. There's been a crisis, and we're looking to do regime change and get Kim Jong-un out of there. Essentially, right before the war is going to end, Kim Jong-un has one nuclear weapon left over and basically drops it on Seoul, and you have, millions of people die. And I think in that scenario, he actually dropped one in Tokyo as well, and you had, millions of people die. We had a second scenario, which is even more frightening, which was basically regional nuclear war, where Kim Jong-un basically launches an attack on a lot of the major cities in South Korea and in Japan. You had millions of more people die. The scariest of all is the one I think we're in today, which is the third one. And basically, Kim Jong-un launches a massive nuclear attack on South Korea, Japan, and the west coast of the United States. In that scenario, 8 million people died. And that doesn't even count the long-term effects of, radioactivity that would be spewed through the atmosphere, potentially millions of people getting cancer 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So the risks that we're talking about here are astronomical, and it's really a shame that this is starting to fade from the front pages, although I think in the weeks to come, Kim Jong-un is probably going to do another ICBM or nuclear test. So we'll be talking about this again, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we will see. I mean, it seems like he likes to be on the front page. That's even his father wanted to be on the front page, and so we'll eventually see that again. So 8 million people might be the worst case scenario. If you're advising the president or you're advising his advisors, military advisors, is there anything good the U.S. can do other than sanctions? And that really hasn't seemed to work. Is there anything that the U.S. can do to prevent North Korea from coming up with more nuclear weapons, or are we just going to have to live with a nuclear North Korea?
Well, what we've got to do is we have to stop them from getting the next generation of nuclear weapons. That's a hydrogen bomb, and that's a 3-stage ICBM. That's just wonky talk for basically them being able to hit the whole U.S. mainland with a nuke, guaranteed. How you do that? Fortunately, the road through that is going to be dependent on China, who absolutely needs to enforce the UN Security Council resolutions they've agreed to. They've agreed 8 times to enforce these sanctions, and they've never done it. I have hope this time they're going to do it, because there were reports a few days ago that there were some skirmishes and some tough situations on some of the bridges leading into North Korea because Chinese merchants were getting very upset that they couldn't get their goods out. So it is possible this might actually get enforced this time. We basically need to strangulate the North Koreans to make sure they don't get any more resources to take that program any further.
So what would happen then? Let's say best case scenario flows out, China's on board. How does that prevent North Korea from moving up to that H-bomb and being able to hit the entire United States?
Well, it's interesting. The North Korean economy is tiny. It's actually 1/3 the size of Ethiopia. So if you take any money out of that economy, it is going to raise the cost dramatically for them to build more nuclear weapons and more advanced missiles. Keep in mind, that stuff costs billions of dollars to develop and test. So if you can do that, if you can pull more resources away from them, they're going to have to make some very hard decisions. Does Kim Jong-un buy another Mercedes or more Louis Vuitton bags for his population? Because that's how he basically keeps himself in power. He bribes the cadre around him. Or does he starve his people more to build these nuclear weapons? It puts him in a tough situation, and that's what we need to do.
From the work that you've done on this, is he crazy? Is he someone who can be trusted with having nuclear weapons?
Well, let's put it like this. I don't know if any of your listeners are a fan of Game of Thrones, but he's the Littlefinger of international politics. That might mean something to some of your listeners. Oh. He's not crazy by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a calculated, cold-blooded killer. And what his calculation is that he wants nuclear weapons to deter the biggest military power of all time, and that's the United States. He knows if he has those weapons, chances are we're not going to invade him because of all the millions of people who could potentially die. So there is rational thinking there. I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing we're going to have to say to him, and I think the president's been spot on, is look, if you attack the United States or one of our allies with a nuclear weapon, it is the end of your country. And that's been standard U.S. nuclear policy for decades now. I think if you make sure you say that to him, I don't think he's going to do anything that's irrational. My biggest fear, though, is if he tests a missile someday and it lands in South Korea and Japan and kills people, that could set off a chain reaction to war. So we might not end up in a shooting war where we're actively trying to hurt each other, but it could be that accidental war I'm afraid of. And keep in mind, we're in August. That's the time when wars start. Mm-hmm.
Harry, what as we wrap up, and I want to visit with you again in the future because there's just so many moving parts to this, and China's such a huge player. So hopefully we can speak again in the future on this.
Yeah.
What do the average listener when they're watching this play out? What do they need to be aware of? Because you tune into any of the cable news channels, and oh baby, we're on the brink of war. We're on the brink of war. So what do people really need to look for?
This is what I would do. Fade out Donald Trump's tweets, fade out in your mind the rhetoric from Kim Jong-un. Just listen to what the actions from both countries are. If you watch the actions, That will give you an idea of where this is going to go. If you hear about missile tests, if you hear about military moves, that's when it's time to really start getting nervous. Don't get all caught up in the rhetoric. It's just going to drive you crazy.
Harry, thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right. Appreciate that, Harry.